Dun dun dun. Well, viewers, welcome to today's episode of the Shadow Files. So I was doing some thinking the other day, and I was recalling my adulthood, or better said, my young adulthood, And I was recollecting how when I lived in San Bernardino, California, my family was basically very vulnerable, as a man raised by no parents and into early parenthood and into early development, early upbringing, basically like all the drama you can think of. So, basically having been fostered most of my life, but out, 7, 8 years old, forward, and then arriving back at the parents' home, trying to maintain a family dynamic that I don't understand, I haven't been raised in, I don't comprehend, so attempting to hold it all together, At the time, it was myself and the family, I had a sibling, 2 siblings, my sister, older sister, and my younger brother. Now, my older sister, now rest in peace, recently, about 2022, she passed away. So, at the time, we were in San Bernardino. And in the Shadows Files, what basically came to mind was she had a boyfriend that went through possession in our very home. And we were too blind to even notice it, We just brushed it off as it must be the drugs, because at the time we were all doing methamphetamine, Even though we had families and we had all these responsibilities, priorities, and obligations, we were still blind to the aspect of our soul, I mean, we took care of the stuff that made us feel good spiritually or whatnot, but it was still a lot of aspects of the being that were missing. So essentially, having viewed my sister's boyfriend being possessed, I go back and I think about it. We would all leave our house, or at least the adults would, and we would leave the kids at home with our mom, and it would only be my mom and whoever else would be there at the house. But he went through a state where he got possessed, and I sat there and I thought about it. Not only did he get possessed, he fell out the back of our car in the freeway and almost got hit by a big ass rig, So it brings me back to what happened to him in our home that led to him almost being possessed. Or being possessed, because he was possessed. I mean, he was shitting himself, pissing himself, All these bodily functions were not functioning, and he was also walking like if it wasn't even him, And at the time, I mean, I didn't know enough. I understand enough. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm looking back and I'm seeing, okay, what did the Shadow Files show us about this person? So it was a man who was dating a woman with children, who was doing drugs, but essentially something in the dynamics of the family home led to the man being possessed. So what happened? So we're going to look at this like this. So essentially, something led to this man being possessed in our home. And then there was an outward expression of his internal state that happened to be corresponding to him falling out of a moving vehicle in the freeway, almost getting hit by a big rig truck. Having a near-death experience, So essentially, I stop and I look at it and I'm like, okay, so either the Holy Spirit brought this to our attention, so that we can question the shadows and everything else, because clearly these are the Shadow X-Files, So why would the Holy Spirit bring this man to our attention right now, What would be the whole point, Mr. Shadow Man? Why would he bring you to look upon this matter? Is it because you guys are trying to do something very similar here? Or is it just because it's telling you, hey, he's looking at you from the past and seeing everything that you do? Because think about it, all this time, what have we been playing with? The belief of possession, which we already comprehend as being basically in control of your impulses self, So if you don't have control of your impulses self, then when agitation arrives, it's triggering, and it's something that you can't bring back to a state of calmness, where essentially that's the criteria through conditioning matters that they would rather have you believe, rather than realizing like there isn't anything ever really actually going on, besides the entire delusion or illusion of what I need to perceive to be happening for whatever perspective it is that I might be in interest to support, you know. But essentially, I mean, this is a message to the self, you know, whatever you are, whoever you are, you know. I mean, the other homie B, you know, is telling a story already on your guys' behalf, you know. I mean, and it's a story being lately delivered, you know, on behalf of my sister and her interest in the matter, since she is a matter that we set to be essential for our pursuit into all this, you know.